It started on a Tuesday evening, the kind that felt too long already. My hands were raw from carrying boxes, my shirt clinging from the late summer heat. I had just moved into the old apartment building, the kind with creaky steps and peeling paint, when I saw her struggling with a stubborn window on the second floor. She wasn't just any neighbor. No, she had that air about her. Mid-40s maybe, though she wore it like it was her secret advantage. Dark hair loosely tied back, sleeves rolled up, and that quiet grace of someone who didn't ask for help but drew it out of you anyway. I paused, watching her tug at the stuck frame, her arm trembling slightly. "Need a hand?" I called up, surprising myself with the boldness. Her eyes flicked to me, sharp, assessing. They held me for a second too long. "You don't look like you can lift more than a coffee mug," she said, voice dry, but not unkind. "Good thing windows don't weigh much," I replied, already climbing the stairs. She sighed, stepping aside. The apartment smelled faintly of old books and lemon cleaner, lived in and warm. I pressed my palms to the frame, shoved once, twice, until the window finally gave with a groan. "There," I said, catching my breath. Her laugh was low, unexpected. "Well, look at that. The boy has muscles after all." "Boy," I echoed, grinning despite myself. "You're going to hurt my pride." She tilted her head, studying me. "How old are you?" 23. Her brow arched. Trouble, then. I froze at the word, not because it stung, but because the way she said it wasn't dismissive. It lingered, soft at the edges, like she knew exactly what kind of trouble I could be. And that was the moment. The air shifted. The heat of the room pressed closer. My grin faltered into something else, something neither of us was ready to name. I should have left then. I knew it. Instead, I leaned against the sill, pretending I wasn't affected. "If I'm trouble," I said carefully, "you don't seem the type to mind." Her eyes narrowed, but her lips curved just slightly, betraying her. A small silence fell, the kind that filled itself with every unspoken thought. She broke it first, brushing past me to gather a stack of papers from the table. Her shoulder grazed mine, a touch too light to be accidental, too purposeful to ignore. "You're new here," she said, her tone brisk, though I caught the faint hitch in her voice. "Don't make a habit of saving women from their windows." "Just you, then?" She didn't answer, not right away. She set the papers down, tapped the edge of them against the table, and finally turned to face me again. Her expression was steady, but her fingers betrayed her, fidgeting against the stack. "Your trouble," she repeated. I swallowed. Something in her voice cracked through my chest. Not a warning, but an invitation she didn't mean to give. I stepped closer, close enough that I could smell the faint citrus of her soap, close enough that the quiet between us hummed. "And you like it?" I said, barely above a whisper. For a heartbeat, she didn't move, didn't breathe. Then her hand stilled, her eyes flicked to mine, and the room tilted. Not with words, not with certainty, but with the possibility of something neither of us could take back. I should have left after fixing that window. Any normal guy would have. But something about the way she lingered near me, half daring, half guarded, kept my feet rooted. She leaned against the table, arms crossed, as though putting a barrier between us. "You shouldn't talk like that," she said finally. "Like what?" I asked, though I knew exactly what she meant. Her eyes flickered to mine, then away. "Like you're testing me." There it was, the quiet warning in her voice. But if it was just warning, why didn't she push me toward the door? Why did her fingers keep brushing the hem of her sleeve? Restless? Cleared my throat. "I was only being honest." "Honest can be dangerous," she murmured. The words landed heavier than I expected. I wanted to ask what made honesty dangerous for her, but I didn't. Instead, I studied her. The fine lines at the corners of her eyes, the faint shadow under them. She looked like someone who hadn't slept well in weeks. Someone who carried more weight than she let anyone see. And I hated how much I wanted to know why. You look, I started, then caught myself. Too forward. Too personal. Her head tilted. What? I shook my head quickly. Never mind. She gave me that sharp, assessing look again, but softer this time. Careful, she said. You'll get caught saying more than you mean. The strange thing was, I already meant too much. The silence stretched. Outside, a siren wailed distantly, and the hum of the city filled the gaps between us. Inside, her apartment felt too still, like the air itself was watching us. Finally, she pushed off the table, moving closer, her footsteps quiet against the floorboards. She reached for a half-empty mug on the counter, lifted it, and frowned. Cold. She set it back down, but her hand lingered on the rim, tapping once, twice. Long day, I asked carefully. She exhaled through her nose, a short laugh without humor. Long year. That was more than I expected. The kind of answer you only give when you forget to guard yourself. I wanted to ask, about what, about who? But her face shifted again, smoothing over like she'd realized she'd said too much. Instead, she looked at me and asked, why are you really here? The question caught me. I could have said the window or neighborly kindness, but the truth pressed harder against my chest. I don't know, I admitted, but I don't want to leave yet. Her lips parted, a flicker of surprise, maybe even something else. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at me, like she was weighing all the things she shouldn't do against all the things she wanted. Then her hand reached out, almost absent-mindedly, resting lightly on my arm. The touch was small, but it sent a current straight through me. You could stay a little longer, she said, and suddenly, leaving wasn't even an option anymore. Her hand lingered on my arm longer than necessary, warm against my skin. I tried not to stare at it, not to lean into it, but my body betrayed me. Stay, she said again, softer this time, almost like she regretted it as soon as it left her mouth. I forced a crooked smile. You might get tired of me. Her lips twitched. Not quite a smile, not quite denial. I doubt that. The room pressed in tighter. I searched for something safe to say, something casual to ease the weight in the air. But my eyes kept betraying me, catching on the curve of her wrist, the line of her collarbone just visible where her blouse hung loose. I had to look away. I started, but before I could finish, her phone buzzed on the table. The sound snapped us both back. She glanced at the screen, the name flashing across it, then turned it face down without answering. Not important? I asked. Her jaw tightened. Not right now. That answer stirred more questions than it settled. Whoever it was, she didn't want them intruding on this moment. And neither did I. She moved toward the sink, rinsing out the cold coffee mug. The simple motion exposed her in ways words couldn't. The tension in her shoulders, the tired way she leaned against the counter. For a moment, she looked less untouchable, more human. I found myself speaking before I thought. You look like you carry too much alone. Her hands stilled in the water. Slowly, she turned, her eyes locking on mine. And you think you could take some of it? I swallowed. I'd try. A silence fell again, but it wasn't empty this time. It pulsed with something raw, something dangerous. She set the mug aside and stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the faint warmth radiating off her. You don't know what you're offering, she said quietly. Then tell me. I whispered back, my voice betraying the pull I swore I'd resist. Her gaze dropped to my mouth, just for a second. That single glance undid me. My chest tightened. My hands flexed uselessly at my sides. I should have stepped back. I should have made a joke, broken the tension, anything. But I didn't move. The air between us thinned until it felt like one more breath would tip us over the edge. Then, a sharp knock on the door. We both startled, stepping back at the same time, like guilty teenagers caught in the wrong room. She pressed a hand to her forehead, muttering under her breath. "Ignore it," she said quickly, her voice low, urgent. The knock came again, louder this time. She looked at me, her face flushed, torn between the door and me. "Don't say anything," she whispered, her hand brushing mine in passing as she moved toward the door. That touch, quick, almost frantic, was more intimate than a kiss. And it left me burning with one question I couldn't shake. Were we about to cross the line? Or had we already? The knock at the door went unanswered. Whoever it was eventually gave up, footsteps retreating down the hall. The silence that followed felt heavier than the interruption itself. She closed the door slowly, leaned against it, and let out a long breath. Her hand stayed pressed to the wood, as though holding something back. When she turned to me, her eyes were different, darker, unsettled. "You should go," she said, but her voice betrayed her. Too soft, too uncertain. I stood there, torn between respecting the words and listening to everything else in her. Her restless hands, the way her gaze wouldn't hold steady, the faint tremor in her breath. "I don't want to," I said quietly. That landed between us like a match on dry ground. Her shoulders stiffened, her lips parted, and then she laughed. A sharp, nervous sound. "You don't know what you're saying." I stepped closer. "I know exactly what I'm saying." Her eyes snapped to mine, searching, testing. I could see the conflict raging in her, the push and pull of wanting and resisting. "This is wrong," she whispered. "Then why does it feel like the only thing that makes sense right now?" Her silence was answer enough. She looked away, her hand brushing through her hair like she needed something to hold on to. "You're too young. I shouldn't even—" She stopped, biting off the words, shaking her head. I let out a breath. "And yet you let me stay." That struck her. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she crossed the room, pacing as though motion could outrun the truth. "You don't understand," she said. I've made mistakes before. Things that don't go away. Things that leave marks." The confession hung there, raw and unguarded. I wanted to ask what she meant, but the answer was in her eyes. Regret, deep and quiet, like shadows she'd been living with for years. "Maybe," I said carefully, "but I'm not here to add to your regrets." She froze mid-step, turning back toward me. That was the moment. The air thick, our eyes locked, both of us stripped bare by the words hanging between us. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her hand lifted slightly, as if reaching for me, then faltered halfway. "Say it," I urged, my voice rougher than I intended. She swallowed, shaking her head. "If I say it, we won't come back from it." I didn't move, couldn't. We stood there, the room too still, the night pressing in around us, both of us caught in the gravity of something we couldn't undo. Her eyes softened then, almost breaking. "Why you?" she whispered. "Why now?" And in that silence, heavy and charged, the question hung between us like a door half open, daring either of us to step through. Her question, "Why you? Why now?" still echoed when her phone buzzed again on the table. This time she didn't reach for it, but my eyes flicked to the screen before she could turn it over. A name lit up, one I recognized. My chest tightened. It was my older brother. I blinked, confused, replaying the glimpse in my head. Same name, same contact photo. She saw my face change, followed my gaze, and cursed under her breath. Too late. "You know him?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. She looked away, her hand gripping the back of a chair until her knuckles whitened. I didn't want you to find out like this." The words cut through me. "Find out what?" Her silence was worse than any answer. Finally, she spoke, low, almost ashamed. "We used to be involved. Years ago, before you ever came here. It ended badly." The room tilted. My brother. Of all people. I staggered back a step, needing space. The closeness that had burned between us seconds ago now felt dangerous in a different way. "You're telling me," I said slowly, "that the woman I can't stop thinking about is the same one he—" I broke off, unable to finish. Her eyes snapped to mine then, fierce and vulnerable all at once. "Don't reduce me to that. It wasn't what you think. It was messy and wrong, and I've regretted it every day since." I dragged a hand through my hair, heart pounding. "So why didn't you tell me?" "Because you're not him," she shot back. Her voice cracked, but she held my gaze. "You see me differently. You make me feel like I'm not a mistake." That stopped me cold. The raw honesty in her words clashed with the storm inside me. My brother's ghost hung between us, but so did something undeniable. Something I wasn't ready to let go of. A silence stretched, jagged, painful. Then her phone buzzed again. Relentless. This time she grabbed it, pressed it hard against her palm as if she could crush it into silence. "He doesn't matter," she whispered. "Not anymore." I stared at her, torn between walking out and pulling her closer. "Do you have any idea what this does to me? To us?" She flinched, then stepped forward, closing the space like she couldn't stop herself. "Then tell me to let you go. Say it and I will." The challenge in her eyes was electric. My throat tightened. I opened my mouth, but nothing came, because I couldn't say it. Her breath caught at my silence. For the first time, she looked almost relieved, almost like she'd gambled and won. The phone finally stilled on the table, the screen black. But the truth between us was louder than any ring. The silence after her words pressed down on us like the whole room was waiting for my answer. "Say it. Tell me to let you go." But I couldn't. She stood there, her chest rising and falling too quickly, her knuckles pale where she still gripped the edge of the chair. For a moment, she didn't look older, wiser, or untouchable. She just looked breakable, and it undid me. I took a step forward, then another, until I was close enough to see the faint tremor in her lips, the way her eyes glistened though she tried to hold them steady. "I can't," I said finally, voice rough. "I can't tell you to let me go." Her breath hitched, the smallest sound, but it cracked the distance between us wide open. She let go of the chair, her hand lifting halfway like it wasn't sure where to land. "I told myself I wouldn't do this again," she whispered. "Not after the mistakes I've made. Not after him." "I'm not him," I said quickly. Too quickly. Her gaze sharpened, like she wanted to believe me but couldn't quite. "You don't understand what I've done, what it cost me." "Then let me," I said. "Let me understand. Don't shut me out before I even get the chance." The words spilled out faster than I meant. Desperate, almost pleading. She blinked, caught off guard by the rawness in my voice. Something shifted then. Her shoulders dropped. The tension in her face softened. "You make it sound so easy." "It's not easy," I admitted. "It's terrifying. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you." For a second, she just stared at me. Then her hand finally found its place, resting against my chest, right over my heart. The touch was gentle, but it pinned me in place more than any weight ever could. "I shouldn't want this," she murmured, her voice shaking. I covered her hand with mine, holding it there. "But you do." Her eyes closed, her head bowing slightly like the truth was heavier than she could carry. "I do." The words hung in the air, fragile and final all at once. Neither of us moved. Neither of us dared to close the last inch between us. But in that stillness, in that quiet admission, something settled. The fight was over. The denial, the distance, gone. We stood there, connected by a single touch, breathing the same charged air, both knowing we had just crossed a line we couldn't uncross. Her eyes opened again, meeting mine with a steadiness that hadn't been there before. "Then promise me," she whispered, "if we do this, don't make me regret it." I tightened my hand over hers, my voice steady now. I won't. And for the first time, she didn't look away. Later that night, long after the city outside had gone quiet, we sat by the open window I'd fixed, the cool air spilling into the room. Neither of us said much at first. Words felt too fragile, too easy to shatter what had just been built between us. Her hand rested on the arm of the chair, mine close enough that the distance was deliberate. We weren't rushing it anymore. We didn't need to. I glanced at her profile, the lines that told stories she hadn't yet shared, the steadiness in her gaze as she looked out into the night. She didn't look like trouble anymore. She looked like someone who had carried too much, for too long, and finally let herself set it down. "You're quiet," I said. She gave a small, wry smile. "For once, I don't feel like I need to explain myself." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "That's new." "New," she agreed, almost whispering, "but not unwelcome." There was still so much unsaid between us. Her past with my brother, the risk of what we just promised each other, the questions of where this would go. But for the first time, the weight didn't feel unbearable. Felt honest. She turned toward me then, her eyes steady. "You really think you won't regret this?" I shook my head. "No. I'll regret walking away 100 times more than I'd ever regret staying." The simplicity of it seemed to reach her. She leaned back, her shoulders finally relaxing, like she'd been bracing for me to change my mind. When I stayed, something softened in her. We sat in that silence for a while, the kind that wasn't heavy anymore but full, like a deep breath finally let out. "Maybe," she said slowly, "this isn't about right or wrong anymore. Maybe it's about what we choose to carry, and what we finally let ourselves have." Her words settled in me like a truth I'd been circling all along. I reached across the small gap, my fingers brushing hers. This time she didn't pull away. Her hand slipped into mine, her grip firm, steady. It wasn't a dramatic ending. No sweeping declarations, no perfect kiss in the rain. Just two people, flawed and stubborn, choosing each other despite the noise around them. And that felt more real than anything else could have. When I finally stood to leave, she walked me to the door. The hesitation was still there, but so was something stronger. Something that had survived regret, secrets, and fear. "Tomorrow?" I asked quietly. She smiled, small but certain. "Tomorrow." And just like that, the story we weren't supposed to have became the one we chose to begin.